Open your freezer right now, and you'll probably find 3 sad boxes of frozen dinners that you bought because they were on offer. But deep down you know they're absolute rubbish that'll taste like cardboard covered in disappointment sauce. We're exposing the 10 British frozen dinners you should avoid like a dodgy takeaway, and celebrating the 10 that actually deliver proper food you'd be happy to serve when the grandkids visit. Some of these might shock you. Iceland slaps luxury on everything, hoping you won't notice. It's the same old rubbish in fancier packaging, and their luxury cottage pie is the perfect example of marketing over substance. The mince tastes like it's been processed to death and back again. No texture, no flavour, just brown gloop that could be literally anything covered in gravy granules and water. The mashed potato topping looks impressive in the picture, with those perfect swirls, but out of your oven it's a watery mess that hasn't even browned properly, just sitting there like something the cat wouldn't touch. Your wife never bought frozen cottage pie because she made proper cottage pie with leftover Sunday roast mince and actual vegetables you could identify. But Iceland wants you to believe their factory-made version is somehow luxury. The meat-to-gravy ratio is insulting, mostly gravy, with occasional hints that meat might have been involved at some point in the manufacturing process. And that potato? It's reconstituted mash that tastes like wallpaper paste, mixed with artificial butter flavouring. Life's too short for cottage pie that tastes like the freezer it came from. Findus crispy pancakes were everywhere in the 70s and 80s, and your mum probably served them for tea when she couldn't be bothered with proper cooking. But here's the truth. They were rubbish then, and they're still rubbish now. Except now they cost twice as much and pretend to be retro. The batter is soggy rather than crispy despite the name, and the filling is some mysterious substance that might be chicken and mushroom, or might be minced cardboard. It's genuinely impossible to tell because everything tastes the same regardless of what flavour you bought. The nostalgia merchants will tell you crispy pancakes are a beloved British classic, but that's just rose-tinted glasses doing the heavy lifting. The texture is wrong. The filling is scalding hot on the outside and frozen in the middle, even when you follow the instructions, and the whole experience just reminds you that some things should stay in the past where they belong. There are dozens of better frozen dinner options now that didn't exist in 1978, so stop buying these out of misplaced nostalgia and try something that's actually nice. Asda's smart price range is what you buy when money's genuinely tight and you need something hot to eat, and nobody's judging you for that. But their lasagna is so spectacularly awful that you'd be better off spending the same money on a tin of beans and some toast. The pasta sheets are like cardboard that's been boiled and forgotten about. The meat sauce is mostly tomato water with occasional suspicious brown bits floating in it. And the cheese sauce on top is some kind of chemical approximation of bechamel that tastes like someone dissolved plastic in milk. You would have rather gone hungry than eat something this depressing, because your generation understood that cheap doesn't have to mean inedible, but somehow we've normalised frozen dinners that wouldn't pass as food in any reasonable definition. The whole thing collapses into a watery mess the moment you cut into it, and the taste is just nothing. Not even bad enough to be memorably terrible, just aggressively mediocre and soul-destroying. Rustlers microwave burgers are what happens when someone thought, how quickly can we make something technically edible without caring whether it's any good? And the answer is 90 seconds of microwave time produces something you'll regret for considerably longer. The bun comes out simultaneously soggy and rubbery. The burger patty tastes like compressed meat-adjacent protein that's never seen a proper cow, and the whole thing has that distinctive microwave smell that makes your kitchen stink for hours. It's fast food without any of the actual food part, just fast disappointment. Blokes buy Rustlers when they're drunk or desperate, usually both, because sober and sensible you would never look at that box and think, yes, this seems like a good decision. The cheese doesn't melt properly, just sort of sweats into an orange puddle, and the sauce, if you can call it that, tastes like someone described ketchup to an alien who'd never eaten earth food. There's convenient and then there's Rustlers, and Rustlers has crossed the line from convenient into actually offensive. Now this is controversial because everyone loves fish fingers, but here's the problem. Bird's Eye makes different quality fish fingers at different price points, and their economy version is nothing like the premium version your mum bought in the 70s. These cheap ones are more batter than fish, and what fish there is tastes like it's been frozen and refrozen until it's lost any connection to the sea. The coating is greasy and doesn't crisp up properly, just sits there absorbing oil and making everything soggy, and the fish inside is that weird, flaky, compressed substance that bears no resemblance to actual cod. Your sister served proper bird's eye fish fingers for tea, the good ones with actual chunks of cod inside, and they were genuinely decent, but the company's been cost-cutting for decades, and the economy range is where all those savings have come from. Fish fingers should be simple, decent fish, decent coating, done properly. But these economy ones fail on every count, and they're not even cheap anymore. They're just poor quality, pretending to trade on bird's eye's good name. Charlie Bigham's is expensive middle-class frozen food that pretends to be posh restaurant quality, but costs a tenner for something that feeds two people if they're not particularly hungry. The marketing is all about restaurant quality and carefully sourced ingredients, and Charlie's lovely face on every packet. But strip away the branding, and you're paying premium prices for food that's nice, but not £10 nice. Your daughter probably buys these because she likes the packaging, and it makes her feel sophisticated. But she could make the same meal from scratch for half the price, with better ingredients. Charlie Bigham's has built an empire on convincing people that frozen dinners can be aspirational. And fair play to Charlie for the business success, but you're paying for brand and packaging more than actual food quality. The portions are small, the prices are high, and the whole thing feels like paying restaurant prices for food you're heating up yourself at home. Save your tenner for actual restaurants where someone else does the washing up. If you're getting angry because we've just slagged off your freezer favourites, or nodding along because you've been disappointed by these too, hit that like button, drop a comment telling us which frozen dinners we've got wrong, and subscribe for more honest reviews that your wallet will thank you for. Aunt Bessie has convinced Britain that frozen roast potatoes are acceptable, and they're absolutely not. They're a betrayal of everything a proper roast dinner stands for. These things come out of the oven with a texture that's neither crispy nor fluffy, just sort of, industrial. They taste like oil and sadness with a vague potato flavour if you concentrate really hard, and the edges never crisp up properly, no matter how long you cook them or how high you put the temperature. They're what you serve when you've given up on life and stopped caring whether Sunday dinner is actually nice. Your mum would have been horrified at the idea of frozen roast potatoes, because roasting potatoes isn't difficult. You peel them, parboil them, rough them up, stick them in hot fat, and wait. Aunt Bessie wants you to believe that's too much effort, and you should pay premium prices for inferior results instead. These frozen roasties are expensive, they're unsatisfying, and they make your Sunday dinner taste like a motorway service station meal. Some shortcuts aren't worth taking. Dalepak pies are what you find in the freezer section of corner shops and budget stores, usually in bulk packs that seem like value until you eat them and realise why they're so cheap. The pastry is that weird industrial short crust that's somehow simultaneously hard and soggy, never properly crispy or flaky like actual pastry should be. The filling is barely there, mostly gravy with occasional suggestions that meat might have been involved at some point in the manufacturing process. These pies are cheap for a reason, and that reason is they're made from the absolute minimum ingredients processed to the maximum extent until they barely qualify as food anymore. The meat tastes of nothing except salt and vague meatiness. The gravy is just coloured water thickened with something industrial, and the whole experience is depressing. Britain makes brilliant pies, and Dalepak isn't that. Iceland selling frozen Greggs products seems like a brilliant idea until you try them and realise that Greggs food is meant to be eaten hot and fresh from the shop. Not frozen for weeks, then reheated in your oven until it's a pale shadow of the real thing. The sausage rolls come out dry and sad. The steak bakes have that reheated pastry texture that's never quite right. And the whole experience just makes you wish you'd walk to actual Greggs instead. Your husband probably bought these thinking he was being clever. All the Greggs he loves available at home, but one bite told him he'd been sold a lie. The pastry goes weird, the fillings dry out, and the magic that makes Greggs just disappears entirely. You're paying premium freezer prices for inferior versions of already cheap food, and it makes no sense. If you want Greggs, go to Greggs. It's everywhere. It's cheap, and it's actually nice when it's fresh. Don't buy these frozen versions that cost more and taste worse, and leave you wondering why you bothered. Tesco value. Chicken Kiev represents everything wrong with cheap frozen food. It's technically chicken, technically Kiev style, but it's so far removed from actual chicken Kiev that calling it by that name feels like fraud. The chicken is that reconstituted pressed stuff that's more like chicken-flavoured protein paste than actual chicken breast. The garlic butter in the middle is mostly margarine with garlic flavouring, and the breadcrumb coating is greasy and never crisps up properly, no matter what you do. Your mum made proper chicken Kiev in the 70s when it was exotic and sophisticated, with real chicken breast, actual garlic butter, and proper breadcrumbs, and this Tesco value version is an insult to that memory. The whole thing costs barely anything, which should tell you everything about the quality of ingredients involved. When you cut into it, the butter runs out in a sad little pool of yellow oil that tastes nothing like garlic or butter, and the chicken has that weird spongy texture of reformed meat products. Spend an extra £1 and get something that actually tastes like chicken Kiev rather than this depressing imposter. We're halfway through, and if you're still watching, you've survived the worst British freezers have to offer. The next 10 frozen dinners are the ones actually worth buying, the ones your mum would approve of, and your grandkids will actually eat. Let's get into the proper stuff. Marks & Spencer Gastropub. Fish pie is what frozen dinners should be. Proper food made properly with decent ingredients, just frozen for convenience rather than compromised for cost. It's got chunks of actual fish you can identify, salmon, cod, haddock, in proper creamy sauce, with real herbs and seasoning, topped with mashed potato that's actual potato rather than reconstituted powder. Your wife bought this for dinner when the grandkids visited, and everyone had seconds and nobody guessed it came from the freezer because it tastes like something from a proper gastropub rather than a factory. M&S has always understood that people will pay more for quality, and their frozen range proves it. This fish pie costs more than cheaper versions, but it's worth every penny because you're getting restaurant quality food you're heating at home. The fish is sustainable, the portions are generous, and the whole thing tastes like someone who actually knows how to cook, made it with ingredients they'd eat themselves. This is convenience food done right. Convenient without compromising on quality. Frozen without tasting frozen. And expensive without feeling like a rip-off. Waitrose Gastropub. Chicken, ham and leek pie is proper British pie done properly. Chunks of actual chicken breast, thick slices of ham, and fresh leeks in creamy sauce, all wrapped in genuine puff pastry that rises beautifully and goes golden brown in your oven. This isn't some pressed meat mystery filling. It's real ingredients you can see and identify, cooked the way a proper pub kitchen would do it if they actually cared about quality. The pastry is what sets this apart from cheaper pies. It's actual butter puff pastry that flakes and crisps properly, rather than that industrial short crust that tastes like cardboard. The filling is generous and creamy without being gloopy. The chicken is tender, the ham adds proper flavour, and the leeks give it that traditional British character that makes it feel like heritage cooking rather than factory food. Yes, it costs more than budget pies, you're paying Waitrose prices, but you're getting Waitrose quality, and that's a fair trade. We slagged off Aunt Bessie's roast potatoes, but her Yorkshire puddings are genuinely brilliant. Proper Yorkshire puds that rise beautifully and taste like your mum made them from scratch, with that perfect combination of crispy edges and soft fluffy middles. These are frozen raw rather than pre-cooked, which means they come out of your oven fresh and perfect every time. And honestly, they're better than most people can make themselves unless they're Yorkshire, born and bred with generations of knowledge in their blood. Your wife probably made Yorkshire puddings from scratch every Sunday, using her grandmother's battered tin and a recipe she'd memorised 40 years ago. But even she'd admit these Aunt Bessie's ones are remarkably good for something you just pull from the freezer and bake. They rise properly, they crisp up beautifully, they don't collapse the moment you look at them, and they actually taste like proper Yorkshire puddings rather than frozen approximations. Cook is a frozen food company that most people haven't heard of because they're not in big supermarkets. You order online or find them in farm shops and posh delis. But they're absolutely brilliant, making proper restaurant-quality frozen meals that put every other brand to shame. Their beef bourguignon, fish pies, curries and cottage pies are all genuinely excellent, made with proper ingredients by people who actually know how to cook. It's expensive. You're paying restaurant prices for frozen food, but you're getting restaurant quality, and that's a fair trade. Your daughter probably discovered cook when she moved to a nice area and wanted impressive dinners without the effort of cooking from scratch, and one taste converted her permanently. The portions are generous, the ingredients are premium, and everything tastes homemade rather than factory-made, because cook actually employs chefs rather than food technicians. The beef is tender, the sauces are rich and complex, the vegetables are recognisable, and the whole experience is what frozen food should be. Genuine convenience without compromise. Young's took fish fingers, that ultimate childhood tea, and made them posh, and the result is genuinely brilliant. Gastro fish fingers are chunky bits of actual fish in proper panko breadcrumb coating, not the pressed, reconstituted stuff you get in cheap fish fingers. They're what fish fingers would be if fish fingers were invented by chefs rather than cost accountants, and they're equally good in a sandwich for your lunch or served with fancy sides for dinner when you've got company. Your grandkids will eat these happily because they're still recognisably fish fingers, but you'll eat them happily because they're actually lovely. These cost twice what economy fish fingers cost, but they're worth it. Proper fish that flakes beautifully, breadcrumbs that crisp up perfectly, and a taste that's genuinely delicious rather than just acceptable. Your mum would have loved these if they'd existed in the 70s, because they're what she was trying to achieve when she made homemade fish fingers for special occasions. Young's has always been the premium fish brand, and these Gastro fish fingers prove why. They understand that even simple food should be made properly with decent ingredients. Luxury Cottage Pie. This is M&S Cottage Pie, which actually deserves to be called luxury, unlike Iceland's disappointing version. This is proper cottage pie with chunks of beef you can identify, rich gravy made with actual stock and wine, proper vegetables, and mashed potato that's fluffy and browns beautifully on top. It's what cottage pie should taste like when someone who knows how to cook makes it properly, and it's worth the M&S premium price. Your husband probably picked this up for dinner one evening when you were out, fully expecting it to be disappointing frozen food, and was genuinely shocked when it was actually lovely. Proper comfort food that tasted homemade rather than factory-made. The meat is tender, the gravy is rich and flavourful, the potato topping is generous and properly seasoned, and the whole thing is exactly what you want from cottage pie on a cold evening. M&S proves that frozen dinners can be brilliant if you don't compromise on ingredients or quality, and this cottage pie is one of their best. Waitrose. Perfectly balanced range is what happens when someone finally makes diet food that doesn't taste like punishment. Proper meals with controlled calories that actually taste nice, because they're made with decent ingredients rather than just removing all the fat and flavour. The chicken tikka masala, beef lasagna, and fish pies are all genuinely good, not good for diet food, but actually good, and you're getting proper portions rather than those sad little diet meals that leave you hungry 10 minutes later. Your wife probably discovered these when she was watching her weight, but got sick of frozen diet meals that tasted like cardboard, with sauce, and these Waitrose ones were a revelation. You can be healthy without being miserable. The curries actually have spice and flavour, the pasta dishes have proper cheese, and nothing tastes like it's been reformulated by people who hate food. This is diet food for people who like eating, and that's genuinely revolutionary. Pukka makes proper British pies, steak and kidney, chicken and mushroom, mince and onion, and they're all genuinely excellent, with proper short crust pastry and fillings you can actually identify and chew. These aren't fancy restaurant pies or posh Gastropub pies, they're traditional British pies made properly, the way pies should be made, and they're absolutely brilliant. The pastry is golden and crispy and properly buttery, the fillings are generous with actual chunks of meat rather than mostly gravy, and everything tastes like someone's nan made it rather than a factory. They're not expensive, reasonable prices for what you're getting, and they're everywhere from corner shops to big supermarkets, which means brilliant pies are always accessible. Pukka proves that traditional British food can be frozen without being ruined, and their pies are some of the best frozen food Britain produces. Now this seems wrong. We've been telling you to avoid cheap budget ranges, and here we are recommending Morrison's Savers sausages. But these are genuinely good despite being cheap, and that's rare enough to deserve celebration. They're proper sausages with decent meat content, proper seasoning, and actual texture rather than the pink slime you get in most budget sausages. Your husband probably picked them up because they were on offer, fully expecting them to be awful, and was pleasantly surprised when they were actually nice. Proper breakfast sausages that fry up nicely and taste like sausages should. They're not fancy bangers from the butcher, but they're perfectly decent everyday sausages that cost barely anything and do the job beautifully for breakfast, sausage sandwiches, or toad in the hole. Morrison's Savers sausages are brilliant value. Bird's eye inspirations is what happens when a traditional British company realises frozen food can be modern, interesting, and actually quite posh. Restaurant-style meals like slow-cooked lamb, piri-piri chicken, and salmon with Asian-style vegetables, all frozen and ready in minutes. This is Bird's Eye for people who've grown up and developed taste, but still want the convenience of frozen dinners. And every meal in this range is genuinely impressive. The quality is genuinely excellent. Proper meat and fish, interesting sauces with actual spices and herbs, vegetables that aren't just peas and carrots. Bird's Eye has been making frozen food since the 1930s, and this inspirations range shows they've learned a thing or two in 90 years. Frozen food can be convenient without being boring, quick without being low quality, and affordable without tasting cheap. That's it. 10 frozen dinners to leave on the shelf, and 10 absolute heroes that prove British frozen food can be brilliant when it's done properly. If this helped you sort out your freezer or made you hungry for proper food, hit that subscribe button and watch the next video on screen where we're ranking something else that'll get everyone talking. Cheers.